complex trauma sets up a person to not be able to deal well with uncertainty and the unknown. Complex trauma as a child is in ongoing danger. That's their perception due to neglect or abuse or abandon. When they are in unknown situations, they don't have somebody that they can connect to. They don't have somebody to give them tools. And so the result is they face it on their own. They try with their very limited strength and skill set to solve it, and they get hurt. So being in the unknown usually leads to something bad happening. They get hurt, they fail. Now, if you get a series of facing the unknown and every time you got hurt, something bad happened, pretty soon you've got an accumulation of negative past experiences that basically say the unknown always results in pain and failure. The unknown always is a bad thing. So now, as soon as you're in the unknown or in uncertainty, it triggers fear, which then triggers, I need to get out of here. I need to go fight, flight, or freeze because I can't handle this and I'm going to get hurt. The unknown becomes a massive trigger of the response of fight, flight, or freeze. Now, there's some other things that happen within a complex trauma family that create unknown or uncertainty. Often, the parenting is inconsistent. So some days, dad lives by these rules. Other days, those rules don't apply. Some days, dad's angry. Some days, dad's happy. You're living in the unknown, and that unknown is leading to situations you can't resolve, which is leading to pain. So the inconsistency creates ongoing uncertainty, and you begin to hate uncertainty. The next thing is frequent change. So many people in complex trauma, mom's in addiction, then she's out of addiction. They're moving to different apartments, different houses. Dad's mental health is good one day, it's bad one day. Change, 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 change all the time. You never know what to expect. It's always unpredictable. That creates so much pain because you get hurt so often. So many bad things happen that you begin to hate change because change takes you to the unknown, which takes you to hurt. And then some people go to the other extreme in their families where their parents were inflexible. There was no flexibility. Everything was black and white, rigid. They didn't, in their family, have never had unknown. Everything was always known, black and white. So the child was not given tools to live in uncertainty, to live in the gray. Everything was just quickly trumped by, this is the way it's going to be. This is the way it is. Don't think for yourself. Don't process. Don't weigh things out. You just do it our way. And so the child got no tools for dealing with uncertainty. And now the uncertain stuff is even more scary. And then for some, there was uncertainty because of false hope being offered like a carrot. So think of a child whose bike breaks down, their chain gets broken. And dad says, oh, I'll fix it this weekend. The child gets their hope up. The weekend is still 5 days away. So they sit in this 5 days of hoping, expecting, and then the weekend comes and dad, oh, I'm too busy. I'll do it next weekend. They get their hope up for next weekend, even though their hopes were just dashed. And then they sit through a whole week of these uncomfortable feelings of, is he going to do it this weekend like he says, or is he going to let me down again? Unknown, not sure what to conclude. And they go, that is just a terrible feeling. And if dad lets them down again and then promises to do it the following weekend, they almost begin to feel dad's promises feel cruel. He's setting me up to hurt me. So I hate sitting in the unknown. So what happens when you're in the unknown is you feel a total lack of control. And we all need a certain amount of control in our life. about what's happening in our world, what we can control. We know we can't control everything, but we need to be able to control some stuff to keep ourselves safe, to meet our needs. But if we feel totally out of control, that is a very stressful feeling. And so times of uncertainty, times of the unknown, cause us to feel out of control. Then there's that fear of failure that I just want to talk about a little bit more. Because in complex trauma, failure isn't just an end in itself. I fail, that hurt, that's painful to fail. But in a healthy home, I'll learn from it. This will turn into a positive growth experience. No, in complex trauma, I fail. I go through the pain of failure. Then I get criticized. Then I get punished. Then I get shamed. So failure always results in more pain. So failure is never a good thing. Failure is always a bad thing. So now I fear failure. I don't want failure. And so uncertainty, the unknown, that increases the chances of failure. So now I fear the unknown because I fear failure, and it just is a snowballing negative thing. Now, there's another piece to all of this that I think is important just to mention. All of us have a brain that basically has a cognitive bias. We like what is familiar. The brain is wired to favor repeating patterns and routines. It's familiar. It knows what to do, it knows what to expect. It likes that. It can get into a familiar rut. And that's very good. When you go into a new situation, an unknown situation, you're outside of your comfort zone. You're outside of your normal. Now the brain's got to work harder to learn new skills. It's got to think things through. It takes more effort. And so we don't like that. The brain doesn't like that because it requires more energy. It requires discomfort, and it can feel overwhelming in the beginning. So we prefer to just stay in what we know. Then there's another piece, and that is social conditioning and expectations. So some cultures, so shame-based cultures, they basically have very rigid rules around how you behave in certain situations. And you begin to know that. So if you're in a social setting, you dress this way, talk this way, act this way, treat people who are older than you this way. When you're in your home situation, you act this way, etc. Very, very clear. It maybe not necessarily spoken, but everybody quickly learns it. When you go into the unknown, what happens if you break one of those rules? In a shame culture, you're going to get shamed. You're going to get persecuted. You're going to get tons of pressure put on you that's judgmental, that's designed to put you down, to bring you back to conforming to some rule that maybe you didn't know. And so shame-based cultures actually create extra fear about the unknown, because if I step out of bounds and break one of the rules that I didn't even know because this is a brand new situation, I could get into big trouble. One final thing about our brain, and that is our brain tends to fill in gaps. So they've done studies where you throw a ball up in the air and your eyes follow it, and you catch it, throw it up, eyes, etc. After a while, what they've done is act like they're going to throw it up, and your eyes just think you did throw it up because the brain fills in the gap. That's happened so often, I will just assume it's happened now. And so what happens to the child that every time they've been in the unknown, they've got hurt? That's been their pattern over and over again. Now when they face the unknown, the brain just fills in the gap. It goes to worst case scenario. It says there's something bad's going to happen. And it basically creates this self-fulfilling prophecy that you believe because the brain fills in the gaps. So someone has said this: for someone dealing with complex trauma, the anxiety they feel is not rational. For those who have experienced trauma, anxiety comes from an automatic physiological response to what actually already happened. The brain and the body have already lived through worst case scenario situations. know what it feels like, and are hell-bent on never going back there again. So they've got so many things in their past that if something smells like it today, it triggers all of that, and there's a powerful physiological reaction that's afraid of that being repeated. So let me explain that reaction to you. What gets triggered once you face uncertainty, once you face the unknown? So again, it's not just the fear of the unknown. It's sitting in that unknown with all of its fear that you can't resolve. So again, if you could resolve it in a day or two, this wouldn't be an issue. But if this goes on and it's still not resolved, the stress is gradually building inside of you. Your brain is exploring option A, B, C, D, and it's not resolving. It's going D, E, F, G, and it's still not being resolved. And the brain is getting to more and more extreme solutions, more and more panic. The stress is building. And so what begins to happen? So I'm going to break it into your emotional world, your thinking world, and your action world. So in your emotions, stress is increasing, anxiety is increasing because there's fear of getting hurt, something bad's going to happen. And as anxiety is building, it's more difficult to regulate your emotions. Your emotions are getting to a point where they're about to really become dysregulated, to escalate to this explosive state. More than that, you're starting to feel overwhelmed and losing control. Things are getting out of my control. That can lead to ongoing worry that something bad's going to happen. That can lead to anger, irritability, impatience with people. That can lead for some to feeling helpless and even hopeless. Give up, this is terrible. And then for some, that can lead to depression, to self-pity, just feeling very sorry for themselves, feeling like a total victim that is totally helpless. So what I want you to see is as this uncertainty unknown is triggered, and then you have to sit in it for a while, it begins to pull you in a more and more negative emotional direction. And those emotions get darker and darker. But then what's going on in your thinking? Well, you begin to worry, obsessively preoccupied with things you can't control. Then some go to over-analyzing everything. Some want details. Just give me details. And so they go to people wanting them to predict the future for them, to tell them what's going to happen, to give them additional information. Or they start jumping to worst case scenario. That thinking is irrational, but it doesn't seem irrational to the person who's actually thinking it. So here's what I want you to see. All of these emotions that are growing in their negative, dark direction are putting you strongly into your limbic brain. Your limbic brain is being triggered. Your limbic brain then feels like the little child. It thinks based on feelings, not based on facts, and it can become very irrational. But the person who's going through that can think, no, I'm in my cortex. I'm seeing this very logically. And nobody can reason with them because they think that they are operating out of their cortex in a very logical way. So you got emotions going in a negative direction. You got thinking going in a distorted negative direction. Now, watch what it does in your behavior. It pulls you towards maladaptive tools. It pulls you towards survival tools. It pulls you towards unhealthy tools. So some people get impulsive. I got to get relief from this. I got to get out of this discomfort. I can't sit in this for a moment longer. And so some go to, I just need drugs. I just need something to take me out of this. I need an escape. And they do something impulsively. They shop, they spend money. Others, they go, I just need to stay busy with distraction after distraction. Because if I stay busy, then I don't feel all of this internal emotional discomfort. So your limbic brain is looking for an instant solution to make the emotions go away. And it seems to help, but it only makes things worse. And that's what's important. Others go, you know what? Doing all of this stuff is causing me to sit in this unknown and I can't resolve it. All this work isn't worth it. Let's sabotage. Let's sabotage this relationship. Let's sabotage this job. Let's sabotage whatever because I can't sit in this anymore. Others go, let's create chaos over here. That will be such an intense distraction that will produce all kinds of other powerful emotions that they will block all of the emotions from being in this uncertainty. And then some people overtalk. They're feeling emotional discomfort. They think the solution is to verbalize everything going on. The problem is they're not resolving the emotional stuff, so they're nonstop talking. And they wear people out as they analyze and talk about and go over and over the same stuff, but with no improvement, no change, no resolution. Some people, they go, I'm just shutting down emotions. I don't care about anything because if I care, it hurts too much. And so they just become hard. They just start to go to freeze mode. Others, when they're in this time of uncertainty, they then outsource all of their emotional well-being to others. In other words, you got to fix me. So they become more demanding of others. You got to take care of this for me. You got to keep me happy. You better jump when I say jump. And their expectations of others become unrealistic. And they get very angry if others don't do what they want. And then some, they get drawn into very rigid belief systems. So everything's uncertain, so I'm going to go to this very black and white world where everything makes sense, where everything, I know what to do, I know cause, effect, reward, everything is laid out for me. I don't have to think for myself. And they find a sense of security in that very rigid world. Again, does a lot of damage long term, but in the short run, it seems to work. Now, there's another piece that it's important to see here, and that is what we know from research is that as fear grows inside of a person, it shuts down the ability to connect, relational circuits. So people now aren't to be loved and connected to. People are a resource to be used or an obstacle to be overcome. They're the enemy or they're somebody I can use. So you become more narcissistic. You now don't love people. It's using people or defeating people. And that is a very sad thing. Now, there's another picture that I want you to see here, and that is this. As anxiety is growing, as you're sitting in uncertainty, so over time, the anxiety keeps growing because it's not being resolved. The problem is not being resolved. You get to a point where the anxiety's grown to a place where the brain says, I no longer can handle the stress of this situation. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get hurt. So I am going to go to fight, flight, or freeze. So your brain has a window of tolerance, the amount of distress it can tolerate before it jumps to fight or flight. So the longer you stay in this discomfort, this unknown, this uncertainty, you're pushing towards the edges of the window of tolerance, and then your brain is saying, I'm out of here. Can't take this anymore. I am gone. So what do we do about all of this? Many of you are connecting to this and relating that, yep, that's where I'm at. Help me now figure out what to do. So let me give you some tools for sitting in the unknown, for dealing with times of uncertainty. So again, understand that when uncertainty is triggered, sitting in the unknown is triggered, if you come out of complex trauma, automatically pulls you in a negative direction. It pulls you to unhealthy behaviors, to maladaptive tools. So just be aware of the times that you're triggered and go, okay, stop. what's it pulling me to want to do? Because it's probably pulling me to do something that's going to make me feel better in the moment, but it's going to have negative long-term consequences. Secondly, do you realize that in a child in a healthy home, times of unknown, where they have connection, where they have safety, where they have good support and good teaching and guidance, times of unknown and uncertainty can actually be good things, positive things. They can learn a lot about themselves because all of a sudden they got to try new things. They got to explore new things. Or times of unknown can push them in a new direction that they never even saw on their radar. That's actually a good thing. Or it can open up the things to them that they now want to try. And so they now grow new interests. They grow new skills. So don't be afraid to sit in the unknown for a while. That's my point. Because if you have safe people and connection and good guidance, times of unknown can turn into positive growth things in your life. The next thing is when you're in times of unknown or uncertainty, figure out what you control and what you can't control. That becomes a foundational thing. Then accept what you can't control. Focus only on what you can control and work on making sure that you're doing your stuff. But then accept, I can't control that. I got to sit in some uncomfortable feelings. But just because I can't control it and I can't resolve that problem doesn't mean I can't resolve some of the internal unrest. I can do grounding exercises. I can do things that help resolve some of my emotional stuff. I can't resolve the external problem, but I can resolve some of the internal stuff. Next one, avoid dwelling on what you can't control. Don't start feeding into uncertainty and getting obsessed with what you can't control because you're just feeding fear and anxiety. So what we're really talking about is you're moving towards parenting yourself. So what did you need as a child that would have helped you get through the unknown and uncertainty that you didn't get? What do you need today? Keep yourself safe. Meet your 12 needs. Make sure that you're meeting your physical needs, your intellectual needs, your relational needs, your emotional needs, your spiritual needs. Do things that help you to get emotionally regulated, grounding exercises. Do somatic exercises. Do mindfulness. Stop and take inventory of how am I doing emotionally? How's I doing physically? How am I doing spiritually, relationally? All of those things. Then build activities into your life that meet your 12 needs, that feed your soul, that help you get into a good headspace, that help combat the negative limbic stuff happening and put some positive limbic experiences into your life. So listen to music, go for a walk in nature, exercise, connect with people, have healthy laughter, all kinds of different somatic exercises that help regulate your emotions, feed your soul, your limbic brain, positive stuff. Then reframe this time of unknown as an opportunity for you to grow. And then take small steps to expose yourself to new things you can try. That becomes such an important piece. And then if you look at the 8 areas of uncertainty, go, okay, of those 8 areas, how many are uncertain in my life right now? And you might go 1 or 2. That means 6 or 7 are fairly certain. So don't focus on the 1 or 2 totally. Go, wow, most of my life I got some good connection and I feel quite certain and safe in that. I'm actually in a pretty good place. That helps you deal with those areas where there is uncertainty. Another way to say some of this is when you're in uncertainty, it's like you're surrounded by kind of negative forces all the time. Take time each day to have some fun. Something that's therapeutic for you, something that produces healthy connection, healthy meeting of your needs. Next one, if you are getting into a darker emotional place, a darker headspace, to me, two things I think become important. Number one, reach out for help. Sometimes you can't get through this alone. Now, I'm not talking about wearing everybody out by over talking it. I'm talking about reaching out to somebody that is safe, somebody that's not going to judge you, somebody that's wise, that's going to be able to help you sit in it or resolve some pieces of it, and then follow their advice. But reach out for help. Secondly, when you're in negative headspace because of the unknown and uncertainty, sometimes you need healthy activities. There's unhealthy escapes, unhealthy activities that are just distractions. Sometimes you need healthy escapes where you serve others. Instead of getting preoccupied with yourself, you give to help others. You do a hobby. You do something that is very therapeutic for you, that gets your mind off yourself, off the problems, and just gives you a healthy escape for a little while. Next one, make sure you have some healthy connection happening in your life every day. So vital when you're going through times of uncertainty, because we need connection. That's what that child needed. That's what produces security, is connection to safe people. And then in times of uncertainty, you can often feel like you're just stuck. You can't move forward. So find little goals that you can do every day, little things that help you feel productive, that you're accomplishing stuff. So a little to-do list, a cleaning list, all of that. And then beware of falling into mindless activities that are going to reduce your motivation, that are going to increase feelings of hopelessness. They might make you feel good in the moment, give you instant gratification, but they're just feeding negative stuff. So mindlessly watching TV, sleeping all day, just sitting around doing nothing. That might feel like something positive in the moment, but boy, you're feeding into very negative things. Let me end with this. So ACT, or acceptance and commitment therapy, which we're going to do a talk on in a few months, to me is becoming an important piece for people in their recovery journey from complex trauma. And they give 6 psychological flexibility questions. And so the whole thing is a person in the unknown, in uncertainty. The danger is to be inflexible psychologically. So you go back to old ways of behaving, old ways of thinking, and you just keep repeating the old patterns. You need to develop a psychological flexibility that enables you to approach this time of uncertainty in a new way. So here are the 6 questions that you can ask yourself and then realize I need to work on these possibly. So number 1, how willing are you to experience uncomfortable thoughts and feelings without trying to immediately avoid or suppress them? So the danger of many from complex trauma, as soon as I get an uncomfortable thought, push it down or run away. How willing am I just to accept that and explore it without judgment? Next one, when difficult situations arise, can you adapt your behavior based on what truly matters to you rather than acting automatically or impulsively? So when you are feeling uncomfortable, instead of going to survival, fight, flight, regardless of what that does to anybody, regardless of whether I have to go to hurtful behaviors, old unhealthy behaviors, am I able to go to, I still want to be loving. I still want my life to matter in these areas. That's so important. Next one, how often are you able to stay present and mindful rather than getting caught up in worries about the past or the future? The goal within complex trauma recovery is being able to become present in the present better and better. Because complex trauma, the last place I wanted to be was the present. I wanted to dissociate. Number 4, are you able to notice your thoughts as mental events, not facts, and let them come and go without getting entangled? So your thoughts, you're kind of like a spectator, A newspaper reporter says, oh, yeah, that's happening. That's happening. It's like a prey going by that I don't have to engage. It does not have power over me. I can just let it go and acknowledge it. How good am I at being able to do that? 5, can you take action toward your values even when you're feeling anxious, sad, or stressed? So many people from complex trauma, I want to be loving if I feel like being loving. But if I'm angry, stressed, anxious, I'm not going to be loving. I'm going to be very selfish. So that flexibility says that even though I got negative emotions happening, I'm still going to be loving. Final one. When you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, do you have ways to create some mental distance and reconnect with a bigger perspective on your life? So we are living in uncertain times. We're all dealing with this to a degree. I really hope that what I've shared today just helps you a little bit in this journey, not to magically fix it, but to help you deal with it, manage it in a very healthy way. Well, thanks again for being with us. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.